Hey all, today's car du jour is the 2024 Nissan Z Nismo. And before I get too far into this video, what I'm going to tell you is I'm not a gearhead. I'm not going to be doing burnouts. I'm not doing a 0 to 60 mile per hour speed drive. I'm not doing that. So if that's what you're looking for in this video, bye. I'm not doing any of that. What I am going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about how the Nismo differs from the regular Z. I'm going to do a quick exterior and interior walk around, and then I'm going to get into some of the things that I like and some of the things that I don't like. So let's take a closer look at this week's car du jour, the 2024 Nissan Z Nismo. All right, starting with the quick walk around of the exterior of the vehicle, you're going to notice some red trimming pieces that you won't see on the regular Nissan Z. Plus, you've got this really nifty Nismo badging. You also have a finer mesh in the grille, and I will point out that this grille is a little bit wider than you will have on the regular Z. Now, in terms of a design element, this has what Nissan likes to call a G nose or a grand nose, which means it extends just a little bit further than the nose on the regular Z. Now you do have some Nismo brakes on here, some Nismo wheels. I'm gonna mess that up a lot during this video, so bear with me. Nismo. So Nismo wheels, Nismo brakes. Again, you have this red accenting on the side. And when you come around to the back, you have a different spoiler that is inspired by the GTR Nismo spoiler. So it's a little bit higher and longer than what you would have on the regular Z. Plus, again, you have the red accenting and a Nismo badge right here on the back. When you step inside, you have some up-level materials and trim pieces. In addition to these mats that say Nismo, you have this lit Z badge on the door sill, and you have these really cool Recaro sport seats. You also have some suede material on the steering wheel, and yeah, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. It's going to be on either my like list or my don't like list. Do you want to guess which one it's going to be on now? So, stepping behind the wheel, I will pop that out a little bit and we will fire it up. So you've got some red accents in here as well. And you have this red trim piece on the wheel that says the wheel is facing up here. So I don't know, I think the interior looks pretty good overall. I like these seats, they are pretty comfortable. And yeah, wireless Apple CarPlay. All right, I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna switch this up a little bit and we're gonna go into some driving impressions before I get into the good things and the bad things. Getting into the driving impressions, I would like to point out that I had the opportunity to drive this in Portland, Oregon during the Heels and Wheels event, and driving it there versus driving it in the city of Chicago is really a vastly different experience. So first off, I have to navigate all of these weirdly double parked vehicles and potholes in addition to speed bumps, and the low front spoiler on this vehicle is not conducive to really driving through city spaces in a quick clip. So I found that I have to be very careful during the test week because, you know, especially like coming out of my alley, it comes down really low, and I just felt like unless I went at an angle, the nose was going to brush the asphalt on the street because of the decline. So driving in the city is definitely something that you have to do with a lot more care than you would out in a rural environment or out in a suburban environment where you can really let it go and have some fun driving on some twisty bits. Yeah, there are no twisty bits in Chicago. There's just a lot of stop signs, and there are a lot of bad pavement. There's a lot of bad pavement here. So that part is certainly a little bit more difficult. But with the side mirrors and the rear view mirror, which is really well positioned to see out the back, you do have okay visibility. Now, I am going to say, as somebody on the petite side of things, I do sit really, really low in the vehicle, and I find myself, instead of like kind of driving like this, I find myself trying to look really far ahead so that I can see where there might be some defects in the pavement that I need to avoid, rather than depending on my height and being able to see over the nose. I cannot see over the nose. So I'm about 5 feet tall, and as you can see, I have a lot of space above my head with this headrest. I have a decent amount of headroom. So somebody taller is going to fit in here well, and they're going to be able to see over the hood better than me. But I just have to be very cautious and very careful while I am driving, so that I am careful with this vehicle. It feels very delicate to me. But I will say, once you get used to sitting a little lower and looking a little bit further afield, this isn't a problem. It's just a little bit of a learning curve to get used to when you get behind the wheel for the first time. Now, the joy in this vehicle, however, is not the city driving. It is when you actually have the ability to get on the highway. Okay, maybe not behind a whole bunch of slow people, but being able to get on the highway and really hear the exhaust note and accelerate, that is the fun part. Now, the Nissan Z Nismo delivers 420 horsepower, which is 20 more horsepower than the regular Z variant, and it provides a lot of fun with this vehicle. Lots of smiles for miles. I would toggle it into sport mode as soon as I got on the highway, or I was getting ready to merge onto the highway, and I'd leave it in normal mode for all that icky city driving. This is where the joy of the car is. So what I would say is, if you are living in a city and this is your primary driver, or you're looking for a primary driver, there are probably better sports cars for that. But if you live in the suburbs, you spend a lot of time on the highway, or you have twisty bits in your area, or even if you live in the city and this is not your primary driver, this is a really good option. But I will say, starting price is about $66,000. So, yeah, you have to play that into your decision as well. But when I was at Heels and Wheels and I was driving this on the twisty bits, this was a lot of fun. Driving on the highway in Chicago, also a lot of fun. And I will say, it's really well mannered, and the adaptive cruise control works very well on the highway. But if I had my druthers, I would be someplace with winding roads and higher speed limits and no traffic. In terms of the things that I like, let's just start right here. I really like this digital display. I like the fact that you have some options in terms of what it looks like. So this is the sport view, then you have the boring normal view, and then you have the enhanced view. I would say I probably like the sport view the best, but the fact that you have some options to change it, I really appreciate that. And then, even though you have kind of a small screen here, I like the fact that you do have wireless Apple CarPlay. You also have a nice place to set your phone right here, and you do have some wired in options if you need to charge your phone. This does not have wireless charging. And you know what? I don't mind that, because most automakers can't make wireless charging work. So yeah, I prefer to wire in anyway. In terms of these seats, I really like the way they look. I think that they are really well contoured, and even though I am small, I think that they fit me really well. So, I mean, they are a little bit tall, but otherwise, I really like how these look and how they feel. And I really like the suede inserts on here, because they hold you in your seat a little bit better. I will also point out, you do have physical controls for your audio and for your HVAC controls. You have an actual dial. for your tuning and your volume knob, and I like the hard buttons, especially because, you know, you don't want to be distracted when you're driving a car like this. 420 horsepower. You don't want to be distracted. I will point out that even though the opening here is really kind of narrow for the rear view, you actually have a pretty good view out of the back of the vehicle. And so I definitely like that. And when we get in the do not like list, you'll see this is very, very important. And your side windows and side mirrors are also in a good location to help with your visibility. Somebody dragging their dog along over there, but the side mirrors are well positioned to help with visibility, and that is also incredibly important. Now, as we transition into the things that I don't like, I want to start a little bit with this right here and this right here. And this isn't necessarily something that I don't like, but I think that this is something that a lot of reviewers will point out that they don't like. And that is the fact that you have some relatively old school dials and switches. And I imagine this is supposed to be the heated seat switches, but this specific vehicle doesn't have them. And so I can imagine that people will say this just looks really old school and dated, but I will tell you, when I showed my brother-in-law the Z, he actually really liked and appreciated the old school switches, and he is somebody who owns a 370Z convertible as well as one of the original Datsuns. So if an enthusiast thinks they're cool, I'm going to say that I'm not bothered by them, but I know some people will point to them as something that they don't like. All right. For the things that I don't like, I'm going to start with this right here. This is Alcantara suede that is on the steering wheel. And while I really like it on the seats, I flippin' hate it on the steering wheel. I hate it on the steering wheel because for me, this is like nails on a chalkboard, and it does not tactily feel good to me. So I found myself driving like this during the test week just so that I wouldn't have to touch this suede bit. And I am a 9-3 driver, and I understand why they do this. It's like if you're driving aggressively and your hands are sweating, you can get a better grip on the steering wheel, but I hate this. I hate it. I hate it with a passion. Blah. Now, the next thing that I don't like is going to be this right here, and that is the fact that you don't have a manual transmission. I don't not like the automatic transmission, but in a car like this, I really would like to see a manual transmission. And, you know, this is pretty simple to operate in terms of putting it in drive, park, and neutral. But, yeah, I want a manual transmission, so that makes me a little sad. Another thing that I don't like, and I suppose I would get used to it, get over it, whatever, is the fact that when the vehicle is locked, you cannot open the door. Like, a lot of vehicles will give you a double pull and then it will unlock the door, but no, you're actually going to have to like either physically unlock the door to unlock it or hit the button to unlock it. It just won't automatically unlock if you pull the door handle, and that is just more of an annoyance than a really big problem. And again, it's something that you would get used to, but yeah, I like the double pull. Another thing that I don't like is going to be this right here. No matter how far forward or how far back you have your seat, you are going to have a huge blind spot out of your right rear area. And this generally isn't a big deal unless you are on a diagonal street and you need to turn into traffic and you're trying to look over your right shoulder to see if there's anybody speeding down the highway at you going 55 miles an hour. And I didn't notice this until I was in exactly that situation, but this is a very big blind spot and can potentially be dangerous if you have to do a quick maneuver into traffic and you can't see if anybody's coming. So that is a little bit of a problem. Now, the final thing that I don't like on the Nissan Z Nismo, and this isn't necessarily specific to the Nismo, but it is pretty specific to Nissan in general, And that is the fact that for your passive entry, you have this button that you have to hit. So rather than having like a pad or a proximity, like you just walk up and the car unlocks, you actually, to lock and unlock the car, you have to hit this little button right here. And that's just a little bit old school for me, and I really wish for such an attractive and sleekly designed vehicle that you didn't have to press that button. Yeah. But if that is the sum of what I don't like about the Nissan Z, I think all of those things are fairly livable. All right, if I had to summarize the Nissan Z Nismo, I would say this is a really cool car that looks attractive, has some really nice finishing touches, has an exclusive stealth gray paint, and is really fun to drive on the highway. If you're making this your primary driver and you live in the city, I would say nay, don't do that. But if you have a lot of twisty bits or highway driving in your future, yeah, it's a lot of fun. All right, that is what I have for you on this week's Car du Jour, the Nissan Z Nismo. I'll see you next time with a new Car du Jour.